I've said it over and over again that we pick right back up where the show left off, but shockingly, we do not pick up where the last episode left off this time. Instead, we begin with a sniper looking down his scope only to see Harris and Finch walking out of an old camper. Didn't see that coming. But I jumped ahead of the whole thing. This is Limitless, episode 20. Hi, my name is Rebecca Harris. The hitman takes the shot. Finch yells out to Rebecca, and we hear Harris begin a voiceover. With the voiceover, we cut away from the woods and the camper and go to Rebecca as a child. Her past feels very idyllic, right up until the point where her father begins getting high and doing drugs, because before that, it was just a house full of love and art and, good fun times. Young Rebecca Harris was fascinated with the power of the badge when her dad was arrested for the first time. After that trip down memory lane with Rebecca, we go back to where the last episode ended, in Finch's safe house apartment. Brian Finch is doing his best, but it is clear that he is in pain. Not physical pain, but emotional pain. Brian has hated lying to Rebecca for this whole time. Harris asks Finch if he killed the evidence clerk. He replies, "Of course not," but she still doesn't understand. Rebecca literally says to Brian, "How are these words supposed to mean anything to me? I don't even know who you are." Finch literally tells Harris what I had notated, which is that there's so much that she doesn't know. Brian tries to tell Harris about Piper being kidnapped and how she's being held by Sands, but she shuts him down. And it's sad stuff. These guys had a really good friendship throughout the show, and Harris isn't having any of it, any of Brian's explanation. Both sides are tense, and then Brian drops the bomb on the room, and he tells Rebecca that Sands killed her father. Does that mean anything to you? It's just a way to open her eyes to the fact that she's being closed off to her friend. Brian says, "I'm sorry, Rebecca, but it's true." She thinks he might be trying to manipulate her. This all sucks, the fact that Harris has lost trust in Finch. Rebecca calls out Brian. She can tell he's on NTT, and so to reveal to her that she's correct, he pulls his hand from behind the chair and shows that he had picked his way through the handcuffs that she had put on him. This is basically just, Brian acknowledging it without verbally answering her question. And Harris, who had picked up Brian's daily dose of NZT from the FBI on her way over to his safe house apartment, she isn't giving it to Brian. Rebecca takes the NZT herself. She believes this is the way she'll be able to tell if she's getting the truth out of him. And on the subject of truth, the truth is this YouTube channel only exists to sell my 68-page graphic novel, Everlasting Survivors, Volume 1, all day long. If you follow the link in the description, in the description of this video, it will take you to my Indiegogo, which is in demand right now, where you can get 5 different cover options for the 68-page graphic novel. There are 2 poster options. There's a hat. There's a t-shirt, and anybody who makes a purchase will get a complimentary Gamble comic sticker as a thank you for supporting the book. And yeah, it's just I very much appreciate all of you who have come down this journey with me through Limitless, the series, and I hope you pick yourself up a copy of my graphic novel and enjoy. But back to the show. I wrote the line that came up in the movie a lot, which was, "I was blind, but now I can see," except I wrote, "She was blind, but now she can see," When the NZT kicks in, Rebecca Harris sees not herself as her consciousness representative like Brian does, but she sees Conrad Harris, her deceased father, which makes it very touching, a great moment, because that's the whole reason she started working with Brian, is because she lost her dad due to Mara and Sands cleaning up NZT off the streets. The first thing that Harris says to Finch with her brain on NZT mode is, "Finch, tell me everything." Brian replies, "First of all, I'm not immune to the side effects of NZT." After that craziness, we cut to Sands, who appears to be living the high life with this new crew that broke away from Mora. Piper has agreed to work with Sands as long as he and his crew don't hurt her brother that Mara didn't even know she had. A bad lady in this evil league of evil inquires to Sands as to why Finch has been allowed to live. Jared Sands replies to her that he and Brian have a complicated relationship. The bad lady says to Sands, everyone has had to make sacrifices for this partnership, and Sands tells her to give the order to take both Finch and Harris out. This is clearly a reference to that prior sniper stuff with the camper in the woods, I believe. They are still in Brian's FBI-provided safe house apartment. Finch is still laying it all out. He is doing his best to catch Harris up. He calls Sands and the crew that broke away from Mara his personal Legion of Doom, which, is fun stuff. Maybe a little better than my Evil League of Evil joke, but, hey, to each their own. Harris is very conflicted about all of the new information, but since she's on NZT, she gets good with all of it rather quickly. Brian believes that it isn't fair now that she is on NZT because he isn't the top guy anymore. Finch believes that Harris is too good when she's on NZT, because actually she can figure out things faster than he can, because his brain both of them, they access information that's in their brain. That's what the NZT does. It unlocks the information they have. But Harris actually has more helpful information in her head because of all the years of training. After leaving the safe house apartment, Rebecca becomes a little more like Brian and starts getting messages from her NZT brain from herself being projected to her. And it's just fun because that's what we're used to with Brian. And so it's nice to see that she has that in her as well. And it's interesting because when she first saw her father, I thought he was going to be the one giving her all of the like good Brian, bad Brian, witty information, but so far he hasn't spoken to her. She's only seen him. But the NZT brain version of herself is the one giving her information. Now that Brian's gotten accustomed to Harris having the ability of having NZT, he's happy about it. He likes that they're on the same page. Only problem is that they're not actually on the real same page, because with Rebecca taking NZT, he knows that she has the possibility of being susceptible to the side effects, whereas he still has some remaining portion of his side effect blocker. Rebecca is worried because she is seeing her father. She knows it isn't him, but she doesn't know that this is rather commonplace, so she asks Brian about it, and he starts rambling on about how, I see sweater Brian and leather jacket Brian. He even tells her about the time that Harris showed up and was dressed as Sloane from Ferris Bueller's Day Off in his own mind, and that he believes the visions are a way for the NZT to help us humans process the information, which is a good analysis by Brian. We are now back at the camper in the woods just a bit before the episode began. Harris and Finch came here because there was a lady who once worked for the government, and she was one of the agents that helped Mara get all of the street NCT off of easily being accessible. But she quit when she realized that Sands was killing people. She thought that was a step too far. She's cool with tracking down and helping, but she thought she was on the right path until she realized they were doing the bad stuff. So she got out of it. She's actually the lady who helped Mara. She's really almost too far gone to even be talked to. She used to take NZT to help Mara and Sands, but since they took it away, she now is suffering from a lot of the side effects. And she gives the lady gives Finch and Harris the only piece of evidence she still has from her old days of trying to figure out what was going down. And Rebecca Harris and Brian Finch leave the camper. Here's where we get a big crazy twist on the whole thing, which is when Jared Sands texts Brian Finch and says, "You saved my son. After this, we're square." And he says just one word, which is duck. That's what prompted Brian to say to Rebecca, "Get down," in the opening of the episode. The only problem is that the message was sent too late, and Brian wasn't able to get Rebecca out of harm's way fast enough. She actually does get shot. Amazingly enough, even though Rebecca was shot, her NZT brain is able to calculate where the shooter is. She was able to sit up, shoot through the scope, and kill the sniper. As Rebecca is laying on the ground in pain, she sees her father once again. The difference this time is that he is walking her through how to have NZT turn off the pain receptors in her body by going to the brain, because he says to her that we know that the pain is just a message from the brain telling the body, we got a problem. After that really cool exchange between Conrad Harris and Rebecca Harris, I have to ask myself, is this the best episode of Limitless? Because it feels like it might just be. NZT Rebecca is freaking hardcore. She she has Brian sew up her arm and pop her dislocated shoulder back into place so that they can go to the FBI and run down leads on the evidence they got from the lady in the camper. The lead was a cigarette butt that Harris has tech guy James analyze, and the evidence that he can get isn't definitive enough to tell them all they need to know. So with the two people on NZT now, Brian and Rebecca, they work together to put all the pieces together and track down who the cigarette butt came from. Unfortunately, when they track down the person, they've already been taken out. And so another bad part of this whole thing is that Naz is getting suspicious because of how well Harris and Brian are working together. They almost seem in sync, as if they are both on NZT. Houston, Sands' old comatose friend from the episode Sands, Agent Amara, is now Harris and Finch's only hope. Is it possible that NZT Brian and NZT Harris can wake up a guy from a coma? Well, they're going to give it a shot. While Finch and Harris stand around talking about Sands in the room with Houston, Brian realizes that Houston is hearing them and actually acknowledging the things they are saying. And Harris just has to be able to prove that Sands is behind her father's murder, because that's what it's all about for her. Rebecca thinks there's a possibility Houston was misdiagnosed, so she and Finch create a homemade EEG machine to track his brain waves. And yep, this episode is crazy nuts. We cut back to the FBI, and as Boyle is trying to leave for the day, Naz stops him and asks about Harris, and Naz pulls no punches. given Conrad Thompson's drug-addicted past and Harris dating Casey Brooks, Naz asks Boyle if he has ever known of Harris to take NZT. Boyle says no, but we as the audience know that Boyle gave Harris the NZT he found after he shot Casey, so it isn't 100%, or Boyle isn't 100% forthcoming to Naz about, this possible track that Harris could be going down, which we know she 100% is going down. Everyone is just like peak their character in this episode. Not just Naz, but Brian and Harris and Boyle. Everybody is just doing great, or being executed well and being written well. I just think that this is among the best episodes of the show. Harris and Finch have a conversation with Houston, the comatose friend of Sands, and because this show is fun, it is played out in a French cafe, I assume in Brian's imagination, because, like he says when he's doing computer hacking, it's more fun to watch internet videos than it is to watch him hack. So I assume that we see the conversation take place in a cafe because it's better than watching them talk to a guy lying on a hospital bed. Houston is willing to help, maybe for repentance and maybe because of gratitude for being treated as though he is still a human being and not an empty body. Either way, this is a good development for Finch and Harris. Rebecca is not sure that the comatose friend's brainwave confirmation will be enough to lock up Jared Sands, so she proposes using the one weakness that they know Jared Sands has, and that's, against him, and that's his son. Brian Finch is not pleased with, this. He doesn't think that, basically he tells Rebecca Harris that she's sounding like Edward Morra and Casey Brooks, drunk on NZT power, and, I have to believe that this isn't really Rebecca's plan because it is so out of her character. Even before we see Sands show up at his son's adoptive parents' house with a gun drawn, I'm trying to come up with reasons that this can't be Rebecca's real plan because, it just doesn't feel right. But thankfully, it is revealed rather quickly that it was a setup. Harris told Boyle that Sands was going to show up at the kid's house, and they arrest Jared Sands. Back in the interrogation room, or back at the FBI, when Harris is interrogating Sands, she reveals that she found the bugs that he planted in her place and used them against him. That's how that, or not how, but why, that she brought up this crazy idea of using his son against him. It's interesting to me that Sands is so strong in this interrogation, in this moment, that he doesn't give anything up. Finch and Harris are talking outside of the interrogation room, and it feels like they're saying goodbye. Finch knows it is all over, and that Harris is coming down from both the high of NZT and the high of capturing her father's killer. Rebecca is devastated because she's just now realizing that Brian can't work with the FBI anymore. He burned his side effect blocking bridge when helping her take down Jared Sands, and they never found Piper, so Brian is screwed. he can't take NZT provided by the FBI, and he is no longer any help to them. But he's really happy because he helped his friend, and so that just shows you the character of Brian. It's great. As Brian walks away, he tells Rebecca to go see a doctor because when the NZT fully fades away, her pain, it will be back. And, obviously he sewed up her bullet wound, so it probably wasn't the bestest of jobs. I give this episode a 7 out of 5 stars. It's just the perfect episode. Every character is right. I can't believe next week is the extra long finale. I'm I'm still pulling for a revival. I know barely anybody watches this show from the channel, but if you're here, thank you for being here, and come back next week for the conclusion of Limitless, the series. Come back Friday for Alpha Entertainment Worldwide. See you on Monday for Monday Movie Mayhem. Very much appreciate you, and yeah, like I said, it's all about selling those graphic novels. So if you haven't gotten yourself one, follow the link in the description and get yourself a copy of Everlasting Survivors Volume 1 all day long. Later.